Hi guys and welcome back. Meze Audio had the strongest year in 2025, releasing 5 pairs of desktop headphones at various shapes, sizes and prices. Today, however, I'll test their first headphone of 2026, the STRADA, which literally translates into street from another language, a clear sign that these should be used mostly outside rather than inside. Before I go, I have one single disclaimer for you guys. I received them free of charge from Meze Audio. However, as usual, all thoughts and opinions are always my own. That is not going to change. And with that out of the way, let's check this out. The coolest closed back frame that Meze Audio has ever produced is that of the Lyric and Lyric 2, which I believe looks futuristic, modern, and dare I say even timeless. With these elongated ear caps that are leaning slightly forward, as you can see, following the shape of human ears. We have an all leather headband and of course Makassar ebony ear caps. And that's exactly what we have on the STRADA, even if these cost $799 as opposed to $2,000 on the Lyric 2. So we have the same ear caps, the same yokes and frame, the same headband, and the only difference is that instead of having a stealthy matte black paint, we now have a glossy dark green color scheme, which for no reason reminds me about Lotus cars. There is one thing I truly appreciate on Meze headphones, and that is magnetic ear caps. You just pull them out and that's pretty much it. You can see the full driver assembly, and just as easy you can put them back. This is absolutely genius. Before you ask, yes, you can lay these flat on your table, and yes, this is a cool feature as my headphone holders are not always around. Before we move on to sound impressions, I want to draw your attention to the cable quality, or more exactly, cables quality, because we have 2 of them. One is terminated with a 3.5mm jack and the other one with a 4.4mm balancer jack. These are basically the same cables bundled with the Lyric 1. I find them flexible but strong when twisting and pulling them around. The last 20 centimeters or so of the cable is wrapped in rubber, and that portion suffers a bit from microphonics, especially when I touch that portion of the cable with my hands, but there is none when it's gently rubbing against my shirt. More importantly, these cables are thick enough and I find them quite sturdy. These weigh 330 grams versus 427 grams on the Lyric 2, so almost by 100 grams lighter compared to Lyric 2, meaning that we have a lower pressure on top of your head and also around your ears. I used these yesterday for 3 hours straight, and I believe 4 hours one day before that, and that wasn't really a problem. As you can see, they look also quite cool on my head. There is not so much pressure applied around here. I don't need to bend the headband. I don't need to do any kind of do-it-yourself tricks to make them better. These are comfortable by default, and I like this part quite a lot. If you're wondering what technology has been used to create these drivers, then it's actually very simple. If you remember the 109 Pro headphone released some 2 years ago, then you should know these use absolutely the same drivers, only having a slightly different tuning that is made to work in a closed back design. Their drivers are made out of carbon fiber reinforced cellulose composite, but unfortunately, after removing the earbuds, you cannot see the full driver assembly. And the surrounding torus of the driver is made out of a semi-crystalline polymer coated with beryllium using physical vapor deposition technology. The driver size sits at 50 millimeters. It's not that big, it's not that small. We have an impedance of 40 ohms, and more importantly, we have a sensitivity of 111 dB per 1 milliwatt of power. In simple terms, these are some of the easiest to drive headphones that Meze has right now. These are much easier to drive compared to Lyric 2, even compared to 99 Classic's second generation. Alright, now let's discuss about their sound in an overkill fashion, the only fashion that you'll find around here. I'll start by saying that subjectivity always plays a role when doing such hi-fi reviews, although I'm trying to be as objective as possible. There is a little bit of personal bias, so please take that into consideration. Now, if I take all 5 desktop headphones that Meze Audio released last year, then I can say with confidence that we have a very different tuning on the STRADA, and let's start with that. The bass is the first thing you'll notice getting a bump from anything they made last year. And personally for me, this is actually quite a big thing, a very cool thing, I must say, because their headphones released in 2025 didn't have as much sub-bass energy as I wanted. But these are very different. There is a mild, around 2 to 3 dB boost in the bass region, but what makes these headphones truly unique is that the bass boost is not happening in the mid bass, but in the sub bass, something that usually dynamic headphones cannot do so good without adding a ton of distortion. Crowd headphones. So these are very different because they are not adding any kind of distortions. Once I'm going past 90 dB, I cannot hear distortion at 95 dB, even at 100 dB, which, mind you, is very loud. The bass is nicely holding up, and I don't hear any bloat or muddiness building up at such high volumes, but there's more to this bass. It's not just appearing boosted in measurements, it also sounds fuller, denser and punchier in subjective listening tests. So dare I say, even pleasing and fun sounding. It's not the most control or the tightest bass that I have experienced so far. Those skills are mostly associated to planar headphones, but these are definitely quite full-bodied and thick sounding in the bass, something that I cannot say about a lot of planar headphones of today. And for a music lover, these skills are more important. I was listening yesterday to Hackers by Metric, and well, 1 minute didn't pass and I was already headbanging like a madman. I was toy tapping because these were bringing some impressive bass notes. And if you ever dreamt about a Meze headphone doing proper justice to the bass, these are the ones. Now everybody knows and expects a somewhat full-bodied mid-range from a pair of Meze headphones, because that's exactly how this brand raised to glory, by delivering a full-bodied and an amazing, sweet mid-range. And these are pretty much exactly the definition of these words, and I believe what I have said about the bass can be said about the mid-range, because these are also energetic, physical, distortionless in the mid-range, but also thick, organic, natural, and oh so full-bodied sounding in the mid-range. The more I was listening to these, the more I realized that these have almost nothing in common with the 99 Classics second generation. Although you can make 99 Classic second generation quite natural, quite organic by adding that acoustic filter in between the ear pad and also the driver assembly. These are on another level when it comes to naturalness and tonal balance. On rare occasions there was some kind of grittiness and graininess and sizzle in the upper mid-range with the 99 Classics, but there is none of that on the STRADA. I find the vocals so smooth and so gentle, they pour into your ears so easily. Even high-pitched soprano voices were not a problem, but actually a delight on the STRADA, something that I cannot say I'm sorry about the 99 Classics. I played Lioness by Songs Ohaya and Jason Molina, and I kid you not, I got goosebumps on my hands on the first listen. I tried the track again, then again. I believe I played that track 5 times yesterday, and 5 times I got goosebumps on my hands. These are truly something special with acoustic music, with rock, with everything that has an acoustic instrument. They simply magical I believe, with acoustic music. Maybe it was the message of the song that put these goosebumps on my hands. Maybe it was the interplay between these two great artists, but who I am kidding right now? This is all the work of the Meze STRADA, because these are truly interesting and quite unique sounding in the mid-range department. The STRADA were creating just the right atmosphere, and I could finally connect and be with this band on stage. Try this track, ideally the whole album, and please let me know if you got the same feelings as I did. The Treble is also quite a departure compared to 99 Classics V2, and regardless of what music I played, it could be even Lorna Shore, I never wanted to lower the volume or maybe change the track with something mellower, smoother sounding, because all of those super fast double drums or aggressive cymbals, all of that was not bothering but actually quite pleasing. I wanted to hear more of that. There is some sort of calmness to the sound, effortlessness to the sound that I'm getting with STRADA headphones, but not so much with the latest generation headphones from Meze Audio. I've had that calmness on the third generation Empyrean, also on the Elite, especially put on, interesting, powerful, solid state Class A amplifier or tube amplifier, but I'm getting the same calmness and effortlessness on the STRADA without using a big and expensive Class A amplifier or tube amplifier. So these sound by default like that, and they don't need any kind of helping hand like, a tube amplifier, Class A amplifier, and this is what I like about this. Of course, there are some dips and rises in the upper treble, but all headphones are doing that, so this is not a big deal or not a big surprise. The interesting part is that the most sensitive part of our hearing, so around 6 to 8 kilohertz, is not boosted, is actually a little bit calmer. So that is one of the reasons why I find this treble so easy to digest, so easy to listen to enjoy this kind of treble. So the sound isn't ultra sharp and ultra detailed, but it's organic / natural. And that's more important at the end of the day. In a nutshell, this is their new tonality, something that I didn't hear on any other Meze headphone, and if they continue using this kind of tonality in their future headphones, then they might have a new fan amongst their ranks, and mind you, I really hate this term, being a fan. Okay guys, so I believe it's almost redundant talking and discussing about dynamic range, because when you have such an impressive sub-bass delivery, it's almost synonymous with great, powerful dynamics. So it's redundant discussing all of that, because all you'll hear from me would be physical, punchy, hard slamming and fun sounding. This isn't the fastest or the grippiest bass that you'll hear, from a pair of headphones. I believe that planar headphones are doing that better. However, this is different type of bass, is creamier, is thicker, it's hard to describe. It's something that I'm getting from the third generation Odyssey headphones up to LCD4, I believe, but the newer generation of headphones, of planar headphones, no longer have this juicy and fat bass delivery, something that we have on the STRADA. In a nutshell, dynamics are roaring wild on these, and even these we do not have the fastest transit response. The final kick into your eardrums will make you forget about a slower pace, rhythm and timing. It's also a bit redundant discussing about soundstage and imaging in a pair of closed back headphones, because no matter how hard you try, you still cannot mimic fully the sound of open back headphones. It's close to impossible. Their sound is not as vast and as open as it is on open back headphones, but in their defense, these are far from sounding in your face or on stage like Grado or Focal headphones sound to me. There is still a decent amount of air hovering all around, and I'd say that these never felt claustrophobic or closed in or on stage, something that I'm getting with lots of closed headphones of today. The holography effects are still kicking in and the imaging is still precise, and it's quite 3D if you connect them to a great sounding digital audio player or headphone setup. More importantly, when going louder than my usual listening volume, distortion is never building up and the notes aren't piling on top of each other. Perhaps the easiest part to discuss about this would be their sensitivity / drivability. I believe nobody likes when you get a new dongle, maybe a new DAC amp or maybe a portable digital audio player, and you find out that you cannot drive your own headphones because there is not enough volume and the sound is not dynamic and punchy. I truly dislike that part, and I wish that headphones will never become the new speakers, because I don't want to use big and expensive amplifiers just to enjoy some music. Luckily, the drivers sitting inside their caps are incredibly sensitive. So sensitive that they are picking up some residual noise inside a Cain HE6A Mark II, but there is none of that with a RS8 Mark II by Hebe portable digital audio player. So these are very good at sniffing residual noise of a headphone amplifier, but luckily you do not need a desktop headphone amplifier with these. These are working just fine with portable devices as well. So if you have a entry-level dongle DAC or small DAC amp combo or small portable digital audio player, that is more than enough to drive these to very loud levels, and you'll get the same tonality that I just described. In my humble opinion, the only region where Lyric 2 are winning over the STRADA is resolution detail retrieval. There is simply more information coming forward with the Lyric 2 and less so with the STRADA. But before you pick your torches and pitchforks, you need to know that these are far from lacking resolution or details. At the end of the day, we have the same driver with a different tuning of the 109 Pro, and I remember when I tried the 109 Pro, I find them very resolving, more resolving compared to a lot of headphones at around $1 So I can say the same thing about the STRADA. These offer a substantial amount of resolution, outperforming the likes of Sennheiser HD 660 S2, Sivga P2 Pro, RZH Mania, and even a couple of entry-level HiFiMan headphones, but without sounding as detailed like a pair of HiFiMan Aria Unveiled headphones, for example. This isn't their strongest skill, but you already know that because you do not buy a pair of STRADA for the last drop of information, for the best resolution or the fastest transit response. You buy a pair of STRADA for their tonal balance, for their richness, naturalness, and lastly for their timeless look and great comfort. Wrapping up, I hammered Meze Audio so many times for not delivering the right bass energy and the right mid-range energy, but I take all of my words back with the STRADA because these are very different, and as a music first audiophile, it's really, and I mean really hard complaining about this. Sure, we do not have the last word in resolution. These are not super fast, these are not super big sounding. I believe a pair of HiFiMan Ananda would be bigger sounding and more resolving, but Ananda are not closed back headphones, and everybody knows how their Audivina turned out to be. I refuse to review the Audivina because they didn't sound good, and the market for good sounding closed back headphones is really, really tiny. On the other hand, we have two differently tuned closed back headphones from the house of Meze that both sound great. One that I find to be fun, tonally rich and easy to drive, and affordable as a huge bonus, while the Lyric 2 are more technical, more serious sounding, and closer to a reference sound that demand more power to fully unlock their beauty. If you love listening to music more than anything else and you don't want to invest into an expensive hi-fi setup or maybe expensive portable digital audio player, then recommending the STRADA feels like the right thing to do. You know what? I dare you find a more organic and naturally tuned pair of closed back headphones at this price. Please do that. I do not know who tuned these headphones and these drivers, but I will find you and I will offer you the first round of beers. You are doing a great job, so please keep pushing. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. Please consider subscribing if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you soon with a Gustard DDC review. Cheers!